welcome everyone for the third ACS Agro Lunch and Learn webinar of 2025. And thank you to the generous support of Europeans for their continued sponsorship. My name is Prasesh Sharma, and I'm a Regulatory Affairs Manager at BASF and part of the ACS Agro webinar team. And I'll be the moderator of this webinar. Before introducing our speakers, I would like to highlight the benefits of becoming an Agro member. So you can enhance your science, expand your professional network, which will help you in your career growth, hopefully. And if you're not already a member, you can add Agro to your ACS membership or join as an affiliate for just about $20 a year. You don't need ACS membership for that. Simply visit the links that's provided in the QR code, and it can take you either through the Agro Division portal or the ACS portal, either one. Some updates about Agro Division for this year. We have ACS Fall Meeting in 2025. It's in August in Washington, D.C. I hope a lot of you will be able to go there. And if you have submitted an abstract, you'll get the formal notification from ACS in the first week of June. If you have any questions or if you'd like to volunteer, please contact Ming Ma. She is the program chair for Agro Division. And if you're interested in any other kind of volunteership within the Agro Division, like strategic planning, you can contact these respective individuals with their email addresses. And again, for more info, please visit the agrodivision.org. There are some webinar ground rules. Please only use Q&A tool for questions and comments. Q&A will be at the end of the webinar, and the webinar is recorded as well, so you can watch later. And if you have any questions to the speakers, you can ask later too. And we'd love to hear from you, where you work, what you do. So please share that in the chat function, using the chat function. As a participant code of conduct policy is there from ACS, I would have to read the shortened version for you. So here it goes. All participants must act professionally, respectfully, and cooperatively to ensure a safe, inclusive environment. Bullying, threats, discrimination, or harassment of any kind are prohibited, including actions based on race, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or other protected characteristics. Sexual harassment, including unwelcome advances, jokes, or offensive behavior, will not be tolerated. Always respect boundaries, and violations may result in the removal from the webinar or other appropriate action. Now, I'll present you the speakers. Our first speaker is Tim Deppen. He is a program manager at CERIS, Center of Environmental and Regulatory Information Systems at Purdue University. He holds a Bachelor of Sciences in Agriculture Education from Ohio State University, and his previous experience is at Ohio Department of Agricultural Sciences, Plant Health Division for over 15 years. Our second presenter is Jeffrey Burkey. He's a consultant at DComp Services LLC, and he's a specialist in data compensation strategy. He holds Master's in Chemistry from Penn State University and a Bachelor's of Chemistry from Franklin and Marshall College, and he has over 30 years of experience at BASF in multiple divisions. So now over to you, Tim. Please take it away and present about NPIRS. Thank you.
Right now, you should be seeing the front-facing page of the NPIRS site. NPIRS is the National Pesticide Information Retrieval System. It is a database through the Center for Environmental and Regulatory Information Systems, which is CERIS. We are housed at the Department of Entomology at Purdue University. The NPIRS system began conversation or came about back in 1982, so it has been around for some time. While at CERIS, or under CERIS, we deal with several pesticide database systems. NPIRS, like I said, being the primary database system that deals with the information received from the EPA for a product registration, whether it be current or previously registered products, as well as the PDMS side, which allows the organizations to research or gather information for specific ingredients or items registered with the EPA. from here, I'll just go ahead and do a quick tour of the NPIRS site. Like I said, the NPIRS program, we do have a public site as well as a subscription site. When on the public site, we do have the ability to do a PPIS search or a state public search. The PPIS search page is based on the information that is provided by the EPA. This allows the users to go in and do general searches by EPA registration data, whether it be the EPA company number, the EPA product number, the company names and or product names. It also allows you to conduct a search on general active ingredients to pull results in the PPIS system. On top of that, we do have the state public search, in which we do receive state product information for 35 states. And on the state map, it does identify which products have been, or which states we've received data from. That those states are identified by color when the data is received. So the darker gray or black is going to be most recent data. It does then shift into a lighter gray and or yellow once it becomes a 1 month old data. To see specific data information, you can click on those states, see who the registration specialists, as well as the regulatory agency that handles the pesticide registration in the states, and the ability to search their data. On this, you'll also note when the last information was transferred over from the states. We do post the information as that data is received from the states within their the state pop-up block. And then also it is posted within the PPIS site on the page where it states when it was last updated. The EPA data does come over regularly. It's typically sent over, excuse me, every Monday. So that data does hit our system, is updated on a weekly basis, unless there's a holiday that falls at the beginning of the week, and then that may be set accordingly to match when that data is sent over from the EPA. Like I said, the state public site, once on that page, you can search the same general information, which would bring in state-specific information. So by searching state data, EPA data, or active ingredients to see which products are registered in the states for product or for use at that time. Now, little information on the NPIRS system. The data sources for NPIRS come from the US EPA, Office of Pesticide Programs, and participating states and territories that supply that information to us voluntarily. As I was stating, the update frequency for PDMS and or federal products is a weekly upload, and then the state product upload is dependent on the frequency within the states. Some states send that information over daily, while others are on a weekly and or monthly update process. Many of the systems have the ability to interact with other databases, and amongst those search systems within the NPIRS system. Some subscription information. It has been probably 2 years now. We made a upgrade to the system, which it is a new format. The previous format had a subscription fee in which a organization would have to subscribe to the system, and then from there were individual web hits. The initial subscription was 480, and then the web hits were 165, with a typical search having about 15 web hits, which would bring the one search to around the $500 mark. With the new subscription information, we did reconfigure those tiers to where the subscription fee and the searches are all in one, and it is an annual subscription, and you can choose which tier you would like to subscribe to. And then down below is what various information you can receive from the PDMS, federal product search, and/or state search information. I'm going to go ahead and quickly log into our system. The login system we have set up is a CAS system. It does work with multiple systems that we have to allow the users to have one user login and/or password amongst all of our database systems or all of our systems. Once logged in to this NPIRS site, you do have the ability to choose which type of subscription search you want to perform, whether it is a PDMS, federal product, or state product search. Upon each one of these searches, there are additional criteria that can be added to perform a search. I'm going to go ahead and just jump into the state product search just to show you that real quick. To show the additional fields for those states. Once again, it does reflect which state information you're going to be conducting that search for, but from there, the user can add additional fields. So if they want to look for a specific registration type, whether it be Section 3 regulars, 25Bs, co-packs, or additional document or additional registration types that can be selected. Additional search criteria can be added as well, whether it be EPA registration data, EPA company information, active ingredients, site applications, and/or pests to be controlled. You can add as little or as much data into those search criteria. You do not need to input information in each one of the cells, but the more search criteria that you provide, the more specific your results will be. Same with the federal product search. As we jump and take a quick look at the state product search or the federal products, once again, allows you to enter as little or as much EPA information for your specific search to locate a product. Now, I know that with this organization, you guys primarily do a lot of searching for PDMS information to register products or look at products that are currently registered. I'm just going to randomly grab a EPA registration number from here to show you some of the searches or the search that can be run. I'm going to choose a specific EPA registration number. From here, you can show state interaction that will tie in any of the state data that we received to this federal product search. And then you can also choose to include that PDMS support document. By adding that, it will perform the search to bring that specific product information and those the PDMS information, if there is any, to tie into this. So from this, we'll bring up the product information that shows how or what is registered with the EPA. From here, you'll be able to see the chemical detail, the company details, the chemicals associated with this product, the EPA sites in which it has been approved for use on, the pests that as they have been identified on the application for this specific product, the pesticide type, in this case it's an insecticide miticide. If there's any transfer history, that information would be provided, as well as the state information for that specific product registration. From here, You can refine searches, perform new searches. As you select the new search, it does go through and clear out all of the information. Now, if you were looking for a specific active ingredient that you wanted to include PDMS information for, I'm going to go ahead and put in a PC code. When entering any active ingredients, you can search by the specific active ingredient, the CAS number, or the PC code. As you start to get 4 identifiers in there, it will start to bring up any suggestions to help you find that product quicker. So from here, I'm just going to do a general search on sodium hypochlorite and include the PDMS document information. When you perform the search, it does search all of that information and will, in this case, bring up almost 8,000 search results. Now, as you search through here, you will see all of the product information that are registered with that specific active ingredient. As we go through and scroll down here, we'll come to this one, this blue ribbon commercial bleach, and you'll see where the PDMS information is included in that. This does include the MRID number and the citation information. And then from here, if this was a specific search that you were looking for, you could choose to export this. You can save it to where you can run this search on a regular basis. Say that it's a search that you would perform each month. You can save that to where it will perform the same search for you monthly. The other item is be able to export it in a CSV format or an Excel format or print it. When selecting the export options, it does give you the ability to identify what you would like to include on that export. So from here, if you were just looking at the, say, PDMS information, the type of product, the pests, the sites, and the chemicals, you could omit the transfer history and the alternate names, and it would pull that information out in the export option for you. Now, the next search I'm going to jump into is the PDMS. This allows you to do specific data information for product registration or active ingredient registrations. So from here, once again, you could put in the product name as you start looking for that active ingredient. Like I said, it does bring up those identifiers to where it can help you locate a product as you start entering as little as 4 products. So I'm just going to grab 2 active ingredients from here. You can add additional information. Like I said, if you want to include, any pending registrations, if you want to see if there's any pending registrations for these specific active ingredients, you would select that. If you're not looking for pending, you want to see what is currently registered. As little or as much search criteria as you would like to provide, you put that information in there, and then it will go through and conduct this search. So now it's looking for any products that have those 2 active ingredients, or those 2, the active ingredients included in there. So at this point, it does perform the search, brings up 17 search results. From here, scrolling down, you'll see where you have the MRID information, titles, any citations, the authors, what submissions. This is tied to the chemicals as it's linked to it, and the subjects in which this product was tested on or tested with. You can, if
If you are primarily looking at the submission information, there's a default tab up at the top that allows you to bring that tab forward. So if you're primarily looking at submission information, you could hit that default tab, and then from here, you would be able to scroll down and specifically look at those submission information. And same with the federal product search. There's the ability to save, export it in CSV, Excel, or to print this document. Prasesh, where am I at on time? I didn't want to go over since I had technical difficulties at the beginning.
Maybe a couple of more minutes, like 3-4 minutes, and then we can hand it over to Jeff.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So also from this toolbar, there is a reference dropdown. This allows you to go through and select the type of search that you would be doing. For example, if you work primarily with PDMS searches, if you select this PDMS search document, it does bring up the document information as which is more or less a key that goes through and identifies the cells and what information could be put in there. So for example, in the submitter section underneath the submitter company name, you can search for the company name as it is listed with the EPA. If you're looking for toxicology and you want to do acute exposure, it goes through and identifies that that would be in the toxicology tab underneath toxicology. If you want to include any adverse effects, it would be in the toxicology section underneath adverse effects, and then you would be able to select that information. All of our systems are built with feedback from our users. So if you do notice any bugs, anything that could be corrected or made easier for the user, definitely let us know. We do have the ability to report any technical issues or inconsistencies you may see in the data. We understand that EPA is currently adding and or adjusting data, so there may be items where if it is seen as being incorrect, let us know. We will reach out to the EPA and have them look at the data to verify that it is reflecting the data correctly. But like I said, a lot of our system is built with customer feedback, so anything that could make the systems more efficient for you as users, definitely let us know. And also with the upgrade to this new format, we have added the admin functionality to where the admin for the account can add and remove users. Previously, that would have to be done through us at CERIS, in which we would add and remove users, but we have added that functionality to where the admin can go in and add or manage their users, update any account information. Also, there's the ability to add any job postings on the NPIRS site. So the admin, if there's a job posting coming up or job available, the account admin can add that on here. And with the user management, it does go through, identify the users, allows you to go in and identify the usage dashboard so you can see what searches are being performed over a select time period, which of those users did the searches, and any other information that you may want. For example, I'll just change it over the last month, and it will go through and identify the users that have access and or performed searches over the last year. So there's a lot of the admin functionality added into the system along with the more simplified searches.
Well, thanks, Tim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, we have some questions, but I think we'll keep it to the end and let Jeffrey complete his data compensation part again.
Well, first, the disclaimer with NPIRS. It was great for Tim to intro. I'm NPIRS. I refer to it a couple of times. I am a real user. I am not a paid actor endorsing NPIRS. So you'll see that referred to a few times. First, thanks for the opportunity. Saludos, especially for you reaching out and inviting me to do this, and Prasesh for helping us hone this and get this presentation. Data compensation. I love talking about the practical aspects of data compensation. Through my time at BASF, I worked in data development, as well as regulatory, as well as third-party business, and I found that data compensation there's a lot of legal aspects to it. It's based on laws. There's regulations that the law is implemented under, and then there's the practical business of negotiating settlements and how that plays into other businesses. So it's great to talk about. We'll scratch the surface. Again, laws and regulations, we could talk for days, but we're going to just scratch the surface. Hopefully, after this presentation, your awareness of the topic is either, if it's new to you, you're now aware, or if you know a little bit about it, you know a little bit more, but enough that you can ask some questions in your organization. So just like the topic, sailing in these waters, just like any journey, sailing data compensation without knowledge and preparation, things can be rocky, and you certainly don't want that type of journey in anything, sailing or data compensation. But hey, with the right knowledge, preparation, at the end of the day, hopefully you're in your harbor safely, and you can move on to your next business matters. So when I think of agricultural product chemistry, innovation, I think about the chemistry that's involved in coming up with this synthesis of a new active ingredient, formulations, again, the chemistry involved there, and registration data. In all of this innovation, there's intellectual property, and there are laws to protect those rights of inventors, but there's also built into the laws the life cycle of technology, and that encourages competition in the marketplace as well. So of course, today we're just going to be talking about registration data. And when you talk about the law that covers this, it's FIFRA. We could also be having a similar discussion around the law in Canada. They have laws and regulations for data compensation. There are some similarities, but there's a lot of differences as well. And but today, just to keep it concise, and it gives you a good feel for the topic, we're just going to talk about FIFRA and the U.S. Regulations and really negotiations that go on under the law. So FIFRA governs not just registration, but distribution, sale, and use of pesticides. But today, when we're talking data compensation, we're talking about the registration. FIFRA requires data for the regulatory judgment, and because of the exposure of environment and humans and non-targets, everything to the products, we know there's a lot of data requirements that are out there and need to be met for the EPA to do their decision making. This can be, for those who aren't involved in that, it's hundreds of studies for regulatory. There's much work goes beyond that's not submitted to the EPA, but hundreds of studies, tens of millions of dollars invested by companies to over multiple years, of course, to get there. But there is a balance in FIFRA, like we talked with before, or I mentioned before. There's provisions to balance innovation and competition. So data compensation is about that part of the life cycle where that competition is coming into place. So when you talk about the rules that are in place for data citation, the data requirements are the same for the person who first registers that active ingredient and is trying to get the EPA to sign off on that, and follow-on applicants have the same data requirements. So what that means is the law is set up so that after a certain period of time that you're incentivizing the inventions and the intellectual property, that you're allowing follow-ons to come in. So that requires this citation aspect to the law that allows others to cite. Now there's some limitations again, that a follow-on without permission requires permission within 10 years of that initial registration of an active ingredient. I have a little star there because there are ways to extend that 10 years, an incentive for minor crop registrations, and that gets into some details that aren't we don't really have time for today, but we're going to talk today about the 10 years and just give you a little more practical example of what that means. So 10 years after that original registration, it requires the permission. So you really would have to license, you'd have to approach that company to talk about that. After 10 years, it is something that can be cited without their permission. Now, there's that 10-year from the registration, but there's also a compensability window that's really tied to each study. And for 15 years from the time it's submitted, it remains in this compensable window. So if you rely on a study that's 15 years or younger since it was submitted to the EPA, there's going to be some compensation due. So from a practical point of view here, just to give you an overview, don't worry about the numbers so much. I think the magnitude is kind of interesting. But I did an exercise from NPIRS, pulling information from there and looking at an example, what I thought was a typical life cycle for a new active and the data submission. So what we have here is the green bar is the actual studies per year. So, the first year, that's when you're submitting the data to the EPA. That's going to be your most studies. In this case, it was 132. The initial submission has some studies that carry on over those next couple years, either for whatever reason, but it's really part of that initial submission. And then in this case, the EPA approved the active ingredient in 3 years. Okay, and so that's when the exclusivity period started. So from year 4 through 13, you can't cite that data without the permission of the original submitter. Now, the compensability clock is ticking every year, no matter what. So again, the pattern of submissions after you register a product, there's some conditions of that registration typically, and then you're submitting more data. A company might be adding new uses for the product and submitting data. So you have more data going into the agency, and eventually you're going to go through a registration review process. There's going to be more data being required. So this is an actual example of data. And if you add that all up, I don't know, 250, 260 studies. But now if you look at after the exclusivity window falls off now, and you look at compensability, you can see that, okay, for the first couple of years, there's quite a lot of studies that are still compensable because it's still 15 years from the initial submission. And that's going to weigh into how people are evaluating how much it might cost from a compensation perspective. After that, it drops off. And as you can see, that window ebbs and flows after that as certain data falls off, certain data is still compensable. But that's a typical flow of how data remains compensable over a life cycle of a product, and that would continue on out after that. Okay, let's go to the next. So let's talk. That's kind of the law and how it sets up the parameters for this data compensation aspect to the market or access to the market for follow-on registrants. So the practical aspect of how that works in the regulations, you're putting together an application to get a follow-on product. There are options for how you cite this data. There are three options. There's a cite all, where you say in the form, you're checking a box, but what you're basically saying is, hey, all the data that is in the EPA's files that are applicable to this product and these registrations that I want for my follow-on product, I'm going to rely upon those. The EPA doesn't need to review anything more. They know that, hey, I have all this data in our files. So it's a shorter process for getting a registration through. But as you can imagine, a cite all is a broader net of potential studies that you would have to pay compensation for, versus the next one, which is the selective, which is where you're going to do enough due diligence to be able to say, and we'll talk about due diligence on the next slide, to be able to say, I just want to selectively cite these, whatever, 120 studies to fulfill the requirements for the registration of that product. That can potentially minimize or reduce, I won't say minimize, reduce the amount of studies that compensation is due. However, it does put the review process to a longer time. You got to think the EPA is going to review this to make sure you're selectively citing. And I'm going to go down here and follow up on that. The selective part also, there's an ability for the original data submitter to challenge, because you provide an offer to pay with all those studies that you selected to that original data submitter, and you say, I'm selectively citing these studies. They might at that point say, hey, you're not citing enough. I'm going to petition to the EPA to deny your application. And that gets into the general counsel at EPA, and it becomes a legal matter involved, and that can certainly drag that time. So that's where you say the cite all is the number of studies is potentially higher, the time less, selective, and then there's a third option, cite all under the selective, which is kind of you can do a hybrid of selective and cite all. I'm not going to go into more detail on that, but I think it gives you the feel for these couple of options. Also, your application has to include certification of you've made offers to pay compensation and you've made an offer to start negotiating. So that kind of sets the framework for this compensation discussion to happen between the parties. Again, I already mentioned about the petition to deny, so that if you do go selective, there is some accountability to make sure you've selected the right studies. One aspect from a business perspective certainly comes into play when you're thinking of this topic is that the settlement of data compensation is not required for sales to start. You get the registration, you can start sales. The EPA doesn't care if you've settled it or not. You can start sales, but they do make sure that parties understand that, hey, once you've got a registration, you're bound to any decision that comes out of determining compensation through arbitration. So it comes with even though you haven't settled before you're selling, you're bound by this potential to go through arbitration. So you can't take this matter lightly, and most parties don't. So given all of that, the regulations, how you do this process, what you're obligated to, pre-application evaluation is obviously very important because data comp payments, the registration timeline, those are key components to any business decision somebody's going to be making. So how can we do that? Well, certainly identifying required data is pretty complex. I mean, registration activities, how if it's gone through re-registration, understanding the complexities of the regulatory history of a molecule that you've got to assume has now been in the marketplace for a number of years. There might have been the EPA has gotten feedback on use and exposure and so forth. So that all comes into play in understanding the regulatory history, and you have to really find some tools to look into that. There's a variety of information for such things. So there's a pesticide data submitters list, which this is a list the EPA maintains by and companies request the EPA to put them on, hey, we've submitted data for this active ingredient and we want to be notified and offered compensation for it because we feel our data applies. It's not, you don't say the specific data, you say category-wise data. Hey, I've provided environmental fate data, or there's a number of broad categories. So that's important to get on to see, okay, who's submitted data that I need to care about. Sometimes there's generic data that applies. There's task force data. When I say generic, it's surrogate data from certain molecules that apply to a particular AI you might be looking at. NPIRS, everything that you saw from Tim earlier is very valuable in understanding the submissions, I mean, you have titles of the studies, so you get you see everything that's been submitted for that, and that's very important. And there's other aspects for searching how many other people there might already be other follow-on registrants, who they are. You look at the product labels to understand, hey, maybe you're only interested in non-crop. How many other registrants, follow-ons have just crop or non-crop, or also all of these things come into play in evaluating pre-application so that you can inform really the business. I mean, that's what you're doing here. You want to inform your business of what's our potential liability. EPA dockets, documents, regulations.gov. That's a lot of great history to understand the history of a molecule and determining why certain data was submitted, and so you understand, yeah, I'm most likely going to be on the hook for compensating for particular studies. And then cost estimates of studies. There are certainly ways to more guideline, simpler studies are more uniform in cost, and EPA maintains a list of costs. They originate it by talking with contractors, contract research organizations. You can do the same and get cost estimates for those. So that's all in helping to do that pre-evaluation. Well, let's say, I mean, you've now gone through this pre-evaluation, you move forward, you have an application. you get a registration, you've made an offer to pay. Now you have a dispute that between two parties. Hey, we have to determine compensation here. And first of all, the EPA is not involved at this point. They've put in the rules and regs are in place that you can negotiate, you can go to arbitration, but EPA is not going to be involved. So you can't go seek their help. FIFRA or the regulations. So the law and the regulations don't provide a formula or a definition to say, hey, here's what defines a cost, and here's what the compensation for somebody should be who relies upon that. There's not that out there for you to rely upon. So when you talk about the costs of data, there's a lot of factors that are argued because you have, okay, I generated this data. I might have gone to a contract lab and, okay, they billed me. I had somebody monitoring it who took part of their time inside the company. I had administrative function residing over that. I have a QA unit. There's a lot of pieces to that. And that's going to be argued as, you obviously one side wants to minimize it, one side wants to maximize it. The studies themselves, if it's a cite-all, the actual studies themselves can be argued over, hey, that really doesn't apply to my product, or that absolutely applies in the broad sense. Money factors, there's inflation, there's interest, there's, hey, some are going to argue risk based on, I was the original, taking the risk to develop the product. These things are argued and have been argued. Rights in the data. Hey, I want to be able to take this somewhere else in the world, or you can do that, I can't. There's rights to future compensation. All these things factor into coming up with a number. What helps a lot is these rules and regs have been in place for a long time. There have been arbitrations with public, the awards made public, and you can really see how companies presented information to an arbitration panel and how they ruled upon it. So that gives you some insight in what really holds water.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
I just want to note that there's 10 minutes left in the webinar. So
okay. I'm going to wrap up in 3 minutes.
We did have a few questions that came up. So
okay.
Thank you.
I'll get through this last part here pretty fast. But what that means at the very beginning, you might have, in this case, 5-fold. That's not an unreasonable where to start. If things aren't very transparent, you can have somebody saying $1 million and somebody saying 200,000, and you have to bridge that if you're going to negotiate something. But that's, if you look at all these factors, that is not unheard of to see something like that. So at the end of the day, this is my last slide, reaching agreement. Like I said, this is a legal regulatory business. So when you negotiate this, having the knowledge of all of those things in a negotiation is important to be able to reach an agreement. I mean, you gotta know the business side of it, the legal. I think it's very helpful to know those aspects. Obviously, doing due diligence sets expectations. Nothing. There's more you do of that, there's not going to be the hidden aspects to it, because you want to set the expectations for the business, both sides of a negotiation. Remember, without an agreement, you have arbitration, which is expensive and timely for both parties. And then, obviously without agreement, you have no agreement. And then you have something that just is on the books, so to speak, and unresolved, which is not in the interest of either party as well. So I have found open dialogue, compromise, understanding that and as long as you're bringing that experience, knowledge, that common ground can be found. And thank you for your time. And when it comes to sailing, this is more my speed than those sailboats, but thank you again for your time, and let's I'll throw it back to Prasesh.
Well, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Jeff, for this wonderful talk. We did have a few questions that came up, so I'll just go through the order and see how many we can cover. The first one is for Tim, I think, yes. And the question is, have you noticed if data sends from states change based on growing season? Or can we expect a state to stay standardized, i.e., will always update monthly?
All right. Thanks for the question, Jason. When looking at the state data as that is sent over, most of those are sent over on a regular basis. So I would like to say that they are pretty standard. So if it's a monthly update, it's a monthly update. A lot of times it is communication that's coming from their system to ours. In past, there has been like maybe a state during the registration month that they're primarily focused on the renewals of products. There may be a slowdown or not as much data coming over because they are working at renewing those products. But as for the data coming in, it is pretty standardized now as technology has changed and we've moved to a newer format.
Okay, thank you. And other question for PDMS subscription searches is it just the toxifate ecotox information for any pesticide is only accessible through the PDS subscription searches?
Correct. The toxicology and that type of information is through the PDMS subscription search.
Okay. We had a question from Eric Janus on, I think this is for Jeffrey. Where does one access arbitration decisions?
Okay, I'm not on mute, so good questions. Hi, Eric. So it's multiple. You can do some searches online to find that. If you work with legal firms, a lot of them maintain libraries of past decisions on that. I mean, they're publicly available, so they're not private for them as well. So a lot of those are I'll say generally available to people. I have a catalog of them, for example, because over the years you run across them and you put them on your shelf.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. Can you speak to how data compensation is enforced for groups like task forces who generate generic data, which will be used to support multiple registrations? To build on that, what if that data is used as a part of a model versus being cited directly?
Oh, right. Well, that's not me. I didn't ask that question because that's a part of my advertising, I should speak. I work for a number of the task forces in their data compensation matters. So it's the same as a company. If you have data and you put yourself on the data submitters list, but then also the EPA is using that. For example, you look at the risk assessments through registration review or even new active ingredients, you're going to see, for example, ag handler exposure data that was developed by the task force is used by the companies in supporting their registrations. And so, you're going to have to follow up an offer to pay to the task force, and then they're going to enter into negotiations to settle that. Now, when you talk about a model versus cite it directly, I think it's again you have to go through the linkage to say, okay, the model could not run without that data, and that data is used. That's in my opinion, and I think that it's been argued is compensable for that reason. Like I said, at the end of the day, you're going to have two parties arguing, not compensable. And if you can't settle on it, an arbitrator would have to be involved but if data is at the root of it, I think it becomes clear.
Thank you. There's one complex question, and we can finish off after that. How many third parties are typically requesting a data compensation deal? How does this affect cost? As more generic companies request access to the data compensation deal, does the cost go down for each company requesting a compensation deal?
Yeah, no, that's again, the details I'd love to talk about it for hours. It's a fun, interesting topic. And Michael, David, I hope you're well. And that's a great question. It depends on the active, how attractive the molecule is. Obviously, blockbusters that become generic from the patent point of view become very attractive, and you're going to have a lot of people coming into that market, and that becomes part of the negotiation. When you think about a fair share of, okay, here's the entire, let's just say the data costs are 10 million. Well, how do you share that between everybody? Well, there's a per capita thought, and hey, if there's 10 companies, everybody pays $1 million, right? For that. That's one way to look at it. But then you say, well, others are going to be joining on in the future, maybe. So a lot of that discussion becomes part of the negotiation, might become a condition of an agreement that says, hey, if you get so many new companies over the next 3 years, I want a piece of the pie, so to speak. So it's a negotiation at the end, and you can work out terms in that. Arbitrators will work out a definite one.
Thank you, Jeff. I guess it's 1 p.m. So let me just share one slide thanking the speakers, Jeff and Tim. Thank you again for the talk, and thank you, audience, for participating in it. We do have additional webinars coming in this year, so please stay tuned. If you would like to contribute by being part of the webinar committee, please contact Solito. Thank you, Kyle, for doing the arrangement for with the Zoom, so that this could function properly. And a copy of the past webinars and this webinar will be in that QR code link, so you can visit those as well. So thank you very much. A lot of questions were not answered, so we'll get to those question answers and send it to the group. And you can have a copy of the recording as well.
Prasesh, one question. Was it distributed contact information for Tim and I in case somebody wants to reach out to us?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that. So
Perfect.
thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.